All right, maybe we should get started. If we can get this done early, we can actually have an early lunch as well. Sorry about the cold as well. I've been to other rooms as well. They're nice and warm, but don't know why this room is just freezing. All right, so just before I start, just want to get the feel of the audience, like the type of role that you guys actually do. Just wondering how many Scrum Masters over here. Yeah, business analysts, cool, developers. You've been putting up your hands all the time, so you're doing everything. Okay, so we've got a good balance of actual people in this room over here, which is actually great. All right, so if I actually start talking about lean startup, talking about Scrum team, talking about system thinking, all of those type of methodology, we're all trying to serve one purpose. It's really to actually developing a product, a useful product that our client will actually use. And they will actually use it, and then obviously they will actually pay the money to a company, and the company generate revenue, so we all keep our jobs. So that's all happy chappies, right? So is it that simple by just applying those methodology into something to generate that? Obviously not, because you sometimes obviously get this sort of problem, and you get some nodding over here after you see this. So story estimation slowing me down. Providing a story point onto a story doesn't really actually help you. Concept mapping, having a successful factor, feasible something for the team to actually work on. It's always good. Retrospective, at the end of each iteration, we're trying to actually find out what went well and what didn't. And if something didn't, we're trying to actually improve it and continuously improve it. But often, after so many type of retrospective, the retro become boring and there's no action coming out of it. So how do we resolve that? Distraction, and often you get distracted and not able to actually focus on your main goal. Burn-up chart, not providing a good velocity, showing your progress. So all sort of those problems do actually come in place when you actually apply those agile methodology, and how do we actually resolve it? Scrum Community. Now, I'm not saying a Scrum Community will actually resolve all of those issues, because if I say yes, then I must be on drugs. So, but why Scrum Community actually help? It does actually motivate me on why I actually set up a Scrum Community, because of those issues. So a year ago, my team actually been assigned on working on a pretty big project, a project which we estimated which takes about a year time to complete. So we did what any agile team will actually do, is by start slicing up, finding out those the most critical factors, breaking down into an epic level, finding out what are those critical factors that we need to actually complete, to understand what the MVP is, sprint planning, and then we go into prioritization. We did all of that. We have burn-up charts to actually show our progress. And then, all right, we're all set, we're all ready to rock and roll, let's start developing. And then once we start going through first iteration, second iteration, third iteration, then we thought, okay, we're not meeting our goals. There must be a problem there. And it's pretty much those issues that we saw before. The pre-estimation that we had on our story blew out. It was more than what we actually expected, and that's because we probably didn't do enough upfront analysis around the code factors and type of things. We didn't realize that we get distracted with other production issues that we also have to fix along the way. So that's actually slowing down towards hitting our main goal. And burn-up chart, it wasn't actually reflecting all of those distractions in there, so that our stakeholders cannot actually tell why you're not meeting those goals. So there's so many factors that are actually slowing us down to actually trying to meet our goal. And then, like any one of you over here, then you start attending to and do some research by reading some articles around those type of problem, attending to meetup groups, attending last conference, trying to get some inspiration from others on how they actually practice and how they actually learn and do things that actually rectify that sort of problem. And then you learn, and then you adopt, and then you're trying to take that concept, because their concept is great, their idea is good, but by taking that sort of concept and the ideas, and what the outcome is, back to your team, does it actually fit in there? And sometimes it doesn't, because you need to actually retrofit, because your team culture might be different, your team size might be different, and your project type might be different. So whatever that you actually learn from those meetup groups, sometimes, yes, you know what the outcome is, but it may not actually work perfect straight away in your team, which is fine. I know you guys probably watched MasterChef before as well, right? You know, there is one elimination round in there, which happens a lot, is that a top chef comes in with a pre-cooked end product, looks perfectly, looks nice, and then getting those contestants to come in, taste it, and then the challenge is to, here you go, here's the recipe, you've got the open pantry, so recreate this dish. And you've got an hour time, they give you a time set, recreate this dish. And then after that, you start seeing, you know, those hectic, those crazy things that actually happen during that hour. And then at the end, you're always not getting the same end product. And it makes perfect sense, because for anyone who never actually cooked up that dish before, by just following a simple recipe will not be able to get you to create that same outcome. Obviously, you know how it tastes like, you know what it is. And that's the difference between in MasterChef and what we do in an Agile workplace. Well, the difference is that if they didn't actually create a perfect dish, they get eliminated, they get voted out. For us, hopefully we can still keep our job if we didn't actually do it right? And if you did actually get a vote, then you're not at the right Agile place. Because when you talk about Agile, it's all about learning things. You fail, you learn, you're continuously improving from what you're actually doing. So that's what we've done. We, as a team together, we start working on ways trying to actually improve it by not happening this again. So keep on improving it, improving it. And then one thing that I start noticing is that, okay, we're trying so hard to actually improving things, retrofit that actually fits perfectly. Now what's next? There wasn't a like a network that I can actually share my experience, or able for me to actually share what we fail or share our success in the organisation. Like myself, working in a company where we actually have cross-functional team, it's funny because when I start talking to some of those colleagues that's working in another team, has the same role, they do things completely different. It's very isolated to what they actually do in a team. Their practice is actually different. The way how they run the stand-up is different. The way how they actually run their demo is actually different. It's really, we've got the same team size, but it's different because their prototype is actually different. The culture there is different. The people there is different that actually drive you to a different direction and do things. And sometimes good ideas gets lost during those cross-functional teams, and if you don't actually have this streamline in between those, in those teams. So I thought, okay, that might be a good reason why that I should actually set up this community so that we can actually share our knowledge and having those teams connected together. So that's the reason why I set up 2 goals. One is to actually have that knowledge sharing. So like I said before, if our team have been trying so hard and trying to learn something, improving something that actually gets better and better, we have to actually share this. Now, there is other ways that you can actually share it. Obviously, there is like the Scrum. You can actually do brown bag at work, and you can actually send out like a intranet page or whatever. But whatever that we actually share in the brown bag, it's always something, it's always successful, and it's always like something that works well. But it doesn't actually give you the contents, the journey on how you actually become so good at it. So that's something that's actually missing. And the next thing is connecting the teams together. So having different type of team in an organisation, they often do things differently, and there's a reason why they have to do that differently. And it's really good to know why they have to do it like that, so that if, in the future, if you're suddenly working on another different project, you're always getting the same problem again. And it's always good to know from another team on, okay, now we've got something similar project. If we can actually have that information share across, we might know the pros and cons up front, so it saves us the time of actually trying to actually meet that goal. So to me, when I actually want to set up my community, that's the 2 main goals that I really want to actually achieve. And having those people who have the passion around the same field and sharing those commitment. So to me, a community of practice is like a skill group of individuals who volunteering, coming together because of the passions and commitment. So often if you're working in a cross-functional team, this is the type of team that you may see depending on the product. You might only have like a product owner, BA, developer, IM, and that's it. You can actually start on this smaller project. And if you're on a bigger, greater scale of a project, you might have more team resource in there with different sets of roles. So when I actually looked at that at the very start, I see there's two types of community which I can actually set up. Now myself, working as a QA engineer and also a Scrum Master in a team, at the start I set up a QA community, and we got all of those QA members together. We got them actually start raising topics on what we want to actually improve and talking about. A lot of the things, it's mainly talking about like QA strategy, regressions, like automation, manual testing, how we can actually do better in that. So those individual skill set type of community, it's really improving very vision of one individual role. And another one which I want to do is the Scrum community, which I'm very passionate about, because every day when we're actually working in a Scrum team, you get individual skill set together and trying to developing something good that actually help the society, right? So if we're actually all working together, what's the best practice that we can actually do to make that happen? So with Scrum community, I actually have Scrum Master involved, Dev involved, QA involved, BA involved, and the input is actually valuable. And the topics actually get broader because everyone knows exactly what's going on if you're working in a Scrum team, and then they actually and the stuff that they actually come out is very valuable. So, is that the theory behind Scrum community? Is it just really that two goal? Well, for me, it kind of is, because it does actually help me to work in a better environment. I'm able to actually achieve what I want to do at the very beginning, right? But there is more, of course, if you actually start doing research, there is a bit more deep down to it. And there is a guy called Henry Mitzberg that actually written a book called Structures in Fives, and that actually talks about the business structure in an organisation, and actually talking about different, like such as a Scrum team, as one tiers, and then you've got the actually support management role, which actually supports them and actually how them bond together. And there is one of the quotes that's in there that say the social glue that bind us together for the greater good. After I actually read that quote, the first thing in my mind is, if you guys have actually seen like a movie called Avengers, you've got all these superheroes which have special ability, you know, forming a team together and trying to save the world. And to me, it's not that much different to a Scrum team where you actually have all of those individual skill set, putting it together in a team and to actually develop an actual product that's going to be useful for our client. So that's pretty much it over here. So the tips and techniques. So one of the techniques that I actually use, it's quite actually simple and effective. It's called a lean coffee style. Have anyone been to a lean coffee before? Yes, nodding, of course. Yes. It's actually very simple. You basically actually gathering all your practitioners together, mainly in a coffee place, because that's why it's called lean coffee style. And then you actually, all you need is just an index card and a Sharpies, and then they bring in with some sort of topics that they want to actually discuss. And then throughout the topics, people will actually get vote on which topic that they want to go through, and they start voting it. And then you prioritize this from, you know, the highest vote to the lowest vote. And then, you know, you get those people talking and start discussing, you know, elaborating around the topics and going through some of those, you know, things that they can actually take out of it. And these are just some of those pictures that I've taken from my Scrum community. As you can see that you got those cards there, you have coffee there, that, you know, that's why it's a lean coffee style. Maybe the next one I might, you know, create a called lean beer style, so that next time having the beer right there. So, and it's funny because having a beer in front of you, you may actually bring out the best of you. And it's true sometimes. Now, some of the tips which I've actually got from having that Scrum community, it's a feedback system. I found it's actually very important to actually get feedbacks to whatever that you actually do. Like, even though if you're running on an Agile project, you're always trying to actually get some feedback from your client to know if the product that you're actually building is right. So that's no different to a Scrum community. You're often trying to get feedback to see what didn't went well and what went well so that you can actually slowly improving that. So having that feedback is very important. Time schedules. I found it's also great to actually start time boxing the topics that you start talking about, because often you get different type of people coming in, and obviously different people have different personalities. Some of them is introvert, someone is extrovert, someone that just wouldn't stop talking. And then when you get to a specific topic which they have, passion about, they just wouldn't stop. They just keep going and going and going and going. So having that time box in there to ensuring that you give the opportunity for others to actually vote, okay, whatever that you're talking about, are we still on the right topic or not, and does it actually interest me? So that actually gives you the, options for others to actually say, yes, either move on to the next topic or stay on to the one that you're actually talking to. Bring an Agile coach along. Now, this one is just, I added that last night, actually. Having Craig Brown in the organisation really helps because he has a lot of knowledge around Agile. And before, when we actually started this Scrum community, he came in, he actually threw in a lot of the ideas that we can actually do, and also he brings out the essentials of the kind of the question that we can actually start, talking about. But not always that your organisation will have an Agile coach, and if you don't, it doesn't really matter. If you have that feedback system that you can continuing on improving things that didn't work well, at the end of the day, after a couple of sessions, people were actually able to get something out of it and able to actually learn something out of your Scrum community. So, takeaway. I think I went a bit too fast, but yes. All right, so it is kind of just a story that I want to actually share with you. It's like a journey that I actually had in my workplace. It did actually help what I'm currently doing, is to be able to understand how other teams are working and learning different type of practice that I can actually share back to my team. So hopefully that will also inspire you to, what you want to do. Maybe next week when you go back to work, okay, we need to actually start up a Scrum team. And maybe if you don't, or if you currently have a Scrum team, I hope those techniques will actually help you in those tips. So it's a quick session, so you all get an early lunch then. So is there any questions from all of you? Yes?
In your first slide, you were talking about your story estimates weren't correct. Were you using story points, or?
Well,
how did you know that they weren't correct?
Previously on a project, we have actually working on a story point, and what we actually found is that having a story points on a specific story, sometimes it doesn't really give us a good accuracy. Is it really a 3-pointer takes 3 days, or how do we actually measure a 3-point story? And then after that, we decided to actually ditch the story point and then decide to have a single story card to, as long as we can actually provide a value to our customer, that we can actually release it out and testable, that's considering a good size of a story. So things like that, at the start, we kind of found story points took too much of a time trying to just based on an estimate, and then you always get these people talking about it. So that's why it's one of those hot topics, right? Those estimations, that's why there is other topics that talking about no estimation and how it actually helps you to progress in your goal. So, yeah. No, not you.
You talked about after 3 iterations you had a sense of not moving towards a goal.
Yep.
Is that because the goals weren't clear, or the goals have changed? Or?
Well, at the start, I remember the reason why we're not actually hitting the goal is, one, is because we did actually get distracted a lot. And the second point was, like I said before, we didn't actually did a lot of upfront analysis. So what happened is, once we start digging into the code, we realized, okay, there's a lot more things that we need to do, like a lot more infrastructure that we need to build before we can actually continuing on. So Yeah, you're right. It is like something that we have actually missed at the beginning, and that's why it did actually slow us down. And that's something that actually came out from retrospective, and then that's something, you know, we start talking about and finding ways to actually improving on that.
I guess my second question was, you talked about, you know, once you realise the goals were being met, it sounded like you were wearing a lot of the burden of that. Where was the team's input?
Well,
did the team come along with that? Come along as part of that journey?
Yes, of course, yes. So anything, like I said before, it's in a Scrum team, we're all working as a team together, and we're always trying to find ways together to actually improving the things. And if things doesn't actually work out, there's no individual that has actually failed the team, right? It's a whole team delivering this product. So if something fails, it's the whole team. And we have discussion as a team together to actually find out what we can actually improve together. So it's not like a single person burden or anything like that, but it's just that I like to actually have the passion to actually understand a bit more other type of practice and things that we can actually try and just bring it back into the team so that we can actually start going on discussing about, you know, things that we can try. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Lean Coffee. We've started using that at BS for our sort of Scrum or BA type community and found it much more effective than like team meetings or whatever.
Yeah.
But my question for you is, like that's great in the moment of keeping the group talking and sharing, but in terms of persisting any of that knowledge, like whether you have a wiki or
yes, that's right. Yes.
Come back and you know, we've kind of had this idea, but we haven't really put that into practice.
Exactly. You need to type, when you actually continue on, you need to actually really promote things that's working well for you, right? And we have actually got a wiki page that actually store all our topics, all of the discussions, like pictures, and then actually share across to the company. And we often have that discussion around from different teams as well. So we're trying to actually get at least one member from every single team together so that they can actually broadcast that information out. And I remember when we actually first started the Scrum Community, we only had about like 3, 4 and started off. And now we've got about like 8 and 9. It's expanding as well because one person goes to the other and then one like that type of network, and you start bringing those like group together. Yeah. And it's probably because of the topics that we talk about really interest them as well. So that's why they want to actually come in and, you know, want to hear about it and want to take something and also share their inputs together. And that's what Lean Coffee is all about, right? It's all about coming in, you share, you take, and then having that discussion together.
So do you think documenting has been worthwhile, like putting it in the wiki or whatever?
Well, I wouldn't know if that's actually working well. I found that having a wiki page, we don't know if people actually read it or not. I found that it's more mouth to, you know, not mouth to mouth. No, we wouldn't go that far, but it's the word of mouth that actually broadcasts that really actually help. Yeah.
I've got a comment on that. We're doing a similar thing. I work at Ticket.
Yep.
And we've set one up, and because we're geographically dispersed, we're actually using one of our tools to try and do that. And so we come together and we're using a tool plus leveraging our video conferencing to kind of have a virtual meeting, but that's happening concurrently. So it can include members of or colleagues from different campuses, including Warrnambool, Burwood,
Yep.
2 campuses in Geelong.
Yep.
So we're using Jira to do that, a personal Kanban board, and we get people to contribute their stories, we vote on them, prioritise them, and then we can add any actions that come out of it into the individual story as comments. And then behind that we've got a complementary blog that we're sort of running as well. So if there are any artifacts that get generated that need some assistance, we'll just jump in there.
Yep.
So it's really interesting seeing the response to it.
Yep. And something interesting I found is that once you start fighting in issues, you know, within your team, and then you start talking to others, yeah, they all have different opinions and the things that they've actually tried. So even though if we work in a single organisation with, you know, different projects, you know, they do things differently, and it's actually quite fascinating just to see why did it actually work for them and not for you, and then, yeah. Yep.
I work for Seek, and we have several communities of practice, and we have found that when you launch a new one,
Yep.
Until people discover the value that obviously is in there,
Yep.
gets a little bit difficult to get them to start coming.
Yep.
Do we have any experience about incentivizing?
Yeah, so it is, right? You want to ensure the people that actually come to your community, they need that commitment, and then you have to share that same passion as well. I guess for me, it's important to actually set up goals into ensuring that everyone is actually focusing on what they really want to learn out of it, right? If they suddenly start coming in and not learning anything, and they're not actually sharing, or people just coming in just want to listen out and not sharing, right? It actually defeats the purpose of having that community. And that's why that there's feedback loop. You have to actually start constantly asking for feedbacks from your team members to ensuring that, okay, if this doesn't actually work well, what can we do next? Can you actually take something from this session, go back and try it with your team, and whatever feedback that you actually try with the team, come back and say if it worked well or what didn't. Because whatever the result it actually comes back, it actually brings you to the next discussion as well. If it didn't work well, why didn't you try this? Or if it did work well, that's great, you know, this is something that we can learn. So it's probably about getting them involved as well, but just not listening. It's getting the referral. Can you take this and try it and see how it goes? Yeah. So I think that's something that we've been doing as well, and it turns out great because, like, if we all understand about community, it's all about sharing and taking. That kind of, it's just evolving, gets better and better and better. Yeah.
Just a question about knowledge sharing. What are the developers specifically doing in terms of sharing knowledge across different Scrum teams? And
yep.
I'm also thinking about like try to avoid reinventing the wheel between teams. So if one team has actually built something that's already there, how does the other team know that actually they can reuse that part? Well,
it's funny with that one, right? You can actually share that knowledge, but at the end of the day, you are just sharing something that you experience. There was just something that crossed my mind as well, is that, like, you can really swap members to different teams so that they can actually feel straight away understanding why. Okay, this is the reason why. Now I know the pain, now I need to actually improving on that. So at the start, you know, like, if you're just sharing and talking about the experience, what is the next step that you can actually improve on the sharing knowledge? To me, maybe the next step is about swapping those people around. You know, getting those people from one team and swap them into another team so you can clearly see, you know, and understand. And sometimes, you know, you often come into a meetup group, you only got this set of time that you can actually elaborate what you want to talk about and share that experience. But if you've, you know, been swapped into that team for just say 2 iteration or 3 iteration, you straight away know what's going on. And maybe that's one thing to actually cross-skill and cross-sharing knowledge as well. Yeah.
We used to have, at an organisation I was doing Scrum Coaching, they would swap the BAs every sprint, and it just, we just couldn't get momentum. It was just, but they wanted the BAs to be across all the business.
Yep.
But the disruption of swapping in team members in an adult.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to let it go, so we compromised and look, we had it for 2 months, 2 sprints, and
yes.
then they can move on. But
yes.
Yeah, we just had to.
Depending on the project as well, right? Sometimes a project can actually, one team can actually work on a project this big, and another team is working on this size, and then having that BA keep swapping around, you lost that information, you lost that knowledge. But it is an overall, it is something that can try and see if it works. If it didn't, good, we know that it didn't work. Move on to the next thing. Yeah. I think, is that it? Maybe we can have a... Oh, actually, it's about time, actually, for Nudge. 2 minutes. Yeah, so thanks for that. Hopefully that will inspire you with some sort of, you know, things that you can actually try when you're back.